The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was bigger than most cities. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in their floating chairs, each one representing their home world. The air hummed with translation devices, turning alien languages into words everyone could understand. Today, they were all here to talk about one problem. Humans. Ambassador Sthara of the Vrex Dominion stood up from his chair. His grey skin was covered in scales, and his red eyes glowed as he looked around the room. The Vrexes were one of the oldest and strongest races in the galaxy. When they spoke, others listened. Fellow council members, Sthara said, his voice carrying across the hall. We have a growing threat that we can no longer ignore. The humans. A wave of whispers spread through the chamber. Some beings nodded in agreement. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. 50 years ago, we welcomed Earth into our community. Seth Carrara continued. We thought they would be like other new species, grateful for our guidance, happy to follow our rules. We were wrong. On the huge screen behind him, images appeared. Human ships flying through space, new colonies being built on distant planets, trade agreements being signed with smaller alien races. In just 50 years, they have spread to 12 star systems. Their population grows faster than any other species. Their technology advances at a rate we have never seen before. ZTH Kara's voice grew harder, and their diplomat, Ambassador Katie Sullivan, has been too successful in making friends with our smaller member species. In the human section of the hall, Ambassador Katie Sullivan sat quietly. She was a woman in her 40s with short brown hair and kind eyes. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Around her sat the small human delegation, all of them looking uncomfortable as the Vex spoke. The humans are disrupting the balance we have maintained for thousands of years. Seth Caro said, they question our trade rules. They offer better deals to species we have guided for centuries. They spread their ideas about freedom and equality. This cannot continue. From the far corner of the hall, a very old voice spoke up. You speak of disruption, young Vex. But do you remember why we have rules? Do you remember the first law? All eyes turned to Elder Counselor Moran of the Ethereal Collective. He was so old that his species had mostly become energy beings. His form flickered like a blue flame as he floated in his chair. The Ethereals were the oldest known race in the galaxy. They had been here when the Council was first formed, long before the Vrex or any other current member species. The first law is ancient history, Zethra said with a dismissive wave. Superstition from a more primitive time. Is it? Moran's voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the hall. The first law was written in blood and fire. It was created after the Great Purge 3,000 years ago. Do any of you remember what happened to the Heart Hanny? The hall grew quiet. Some of the older species shifted nervously. The younger races looked confused. The Heart Hanny were proud like you, Sthara. They were strong and had ruled their part of the galaxy for millennia. Then they met another species. A species that seemed weak and emotional. A species that loved their children above all else. Morton's form grew brighter as he spoke. The Heart Hanny thought they could control this species by threatening what they loved most. They attacked the children. They thought it would make the parents weak and afraid. What happened? Asked a young delegate from one of the newer species. The parents burned the galaxy, Morton said simply. They did not just destroy the Heart Hanny, they erased them. Every trace of their civilization, their history, their very existence was wiped away. The survivors created the first law to make sure it never happened again. And what does this first law say? Katie Sullivan asked, speaking for the first time. Morton turned his attention to her. Never harm the young of any species capable of interstellar travel, for their parents will burn the galaxy to ash in response. Sthara laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the hall. More superstition. The humans are not the Velta. They are soft. They value peace above strength. They can be controlled. The Velta, Morton said quietly. Yes, that was their name. I had almost forgotten. They seemed soft, too, until their children were threatened. But Zethra was not listening. He had turned back to the Council. I propose a simple solution. The humans have 12 colony ships heading to the Kepler 442 system. These ships carry families, children. We intercept them. We make demands. When the humans see that we are serious, they will accept limits on their expansion. You cannot be serious. Katie Sullivan stood up, her face pale. You are talking about threatening innocent families' children. I am talking about preventing a war. Sthara replied, better to act now while we still can than to wait, until the humans grow too strong to stop. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Species after species spoke. Some supported the Rex plan, others had doubts. The smaller species, many of whom had good relationships with humans, argued against it. But the larger, more powerful species saw the humans as a threat to their authority. Elder Morton spoke again and again, trying to remind them of the dangers. But his warnings fell on deaf ears. The younger species had never heard of the Velta or the Great Purge. The older species had convinced themselves that it was ancient history with no meaning for today. Finally, the vote was called. The Great Hall fell silent as the results appeared on the screen. 847 votes in favor of the VRX proposal. 156 votes against. The motion passed. The decision is made, announced the council speaker. The VRX Dominion will intercept the human colony fleet at Kepler 442. They will demand that Earth accept limits on human expansion. If the humans refuse, appropriate pressure will be applied. Katie Sullivan stood up again, her voice shaking with anger. You have no idea what you are doing. Humans are not like other species. We do not respond to threats against our children the way you think we will. We shall see, Seth Carrara said with a cold smile. As the council session ended, Elder Morton floated over to Katie Sullivan. I am sorry, Ambassador. I tried to warn them. What really happened to the Velta? Katie asked quietly. They became something else, Morin replied. Something that the galaxy had never seen before and hoped never to see again. Pray that humans are different. But Katie Sullivan was already thinking about the colony ships, about the families aboard them, about the children who were now in danger because of a decision made by beings who had forgotten the lessons of history. Far away in the Kepler system, Captain Jake Morrison was having dinner with his family aboard the UES Horizon. His wife, Lisa, was telling stories about her work in the medical bay. Their 8-year-old son, Danny, was excited about seeing their new home world. They had no idea that death was coming for them, sent by those who had forgotten why the first law existed. The human colony fleet moved through space like a chain of bright stars. 25 ships carried 50,000 people toward their new home in the Kepler system. Families had sold everything they owned on Earth for a chance at a new life among the stars. Children pressed their faces against the windows, watching the endless black of space roll by. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, the largest ship in the fleet. He was a tall man with graying hair and calm eyes. He had served in Earth Space Navy for 20 years before taking this job. Leading families to new worlds was different from military service, but he liked it better. There was hope in this work instead of fear. Sir, we are picking up something on long-range sensors, reported Lieutenant Ben Carter from his station. Multiple ships heading our way. Jake walked over to look at the display. Red dots were moving toward them from the direction of the outer system. How many? 15 ships, sir. They are big ones. Military class. Jake felt a cold weight in his stomach. Military ships this far out meant trouble. Can you identify them? Working on it, sir. Ben's fingers moved over his controls. Got it. They're VRE ships. Vrex Dominion Battle Group. The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about the Vrex. They were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Their ships were fast and heavily armed. But why would they be here? Open a channel to all ships in the fleet, Jake ordered. Tell them to stay calm and hold formation. Then try to contact the Rex. The main screen flickered and showed the lead Vex ship. It was massive and dark, covered in weapons. A moment later, an alien face appeared on the screen. Admiral Krexthal had the typical Vex features. Grayscaled skin, red eyes, and sharp teeth. When he spoke, his voice was cold and hard. Human fleet, you will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. Jake stepped forward. This is Captain Morrison of the UES Horizon. We are a civilian colony fleet. heading to Kepler 442b. We have done nothing wrong. You exist, Krexel replied. That is enough. Your species spreads too fast and takes too much. The Galactic Council has decided that humans must accept limits. What kind of limits? You will return to Earth. You will abandon your colonization efforts. You will accept that there are places in the galaxy where humans do not belong. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. These are families, Admiral. People looking for new homes. We have the right to travel freely in Council space. Rights are given by those with power. Kaexthal said, We have power. You do not. Turn around and go home. I cannot do that. These people have given up everything for this chance. We will continue to our destination. Craigthal's red eyes glowed brighter. Then you will face the consequences. The screen went black. Around the bridge, warning lights began to flash. The VRE ships were powering up their weapons. Red alert, Jake called out. Signal all ships to prepare for emergency maneuvers. But the colony ships were not warships. They were big and slow, designed to carry families and supplies, not to fight. The Vrex battle groups surrounded them easily. The first shots came without warning. Bright beams of energy struck the UES New Hope, one of the family ships. Jake watched in horror as explosions tore through the vessel's hull. The ship was carrying 2,000 people, including hundreds of children. They're targeting the family sections, Ben Carter reported, his voice shaking. They're deliberately hitting the areas where the children are. Jake grabbed his communicator. All ships, this is Morrison. Protect the families. Get the children to the emergency pods. But it was too late. The Vex had planned this attack carefully. They knew exactly where the families lived on each ship. Their weapons punched through the hull and into the schools, the playgrounds, the family quarters. On the UES New Hope, the lights went out. Emergency. Sirens wailed as they rushed out through the holes in the ship. Parents screamed for their children. Teachers tried to get students to safety, but there was nowhere to run. Lisa Morrison, Jake's wife, was in the medical bay when the attack started. She grabbed her emergency kit and ran toward the family sections. The corridors were filled with smoke and floating debris. She could hear children crying somewhere in the darkness. Danny, she called out. Their 8-year-old son had been in the recreation area when the attack began. Danny, where are you? She found him near the observation deck, floating in space near a broken window. The emergency force field had failed, and the room had lost all its air. Danny's small body drifted among toys and books that had been sucked out into the void. Lisa pressed her face against the window and screamed. Her son's eyes were closed, his face peaceful, as if he were only sleeping. But she knew he was gone. The cold of space had taken him in seconds all around the fleet. The same scene played out again and again. The Vrex weapons were precise and deadly. They did not try to destroy the ships completely. They targeted specific areas where they knew families lived. It was not random violence. It was planned terror. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge and watched his son's body drift past the main window. Tears ran down his face, but his voice was steady when he spoke into his communicator. All ships with working engines, prepare to retreat. We cannot fight them. We have to save who we can. The Vrex let them go. They had made their point. Admiral Krexthal sent one final message. Remember this day, humans. Remember what happens when you do not listen to your betters. The surviving ships limped back toward Earth. Behind them, they left a field of debris and bodies. The final count was terrible. 1847 people dead, including 623 children. The youngest victim was only 3 years old. The oldest child to die was 16. The news reached Earth before the ships did. Every human in the galaxy saw the footage. Children's bodies floating in space. Parents weeping over small forms wrapped in emergency blankets. The burned remains of playgrounds and schools. On Earth, President Amanda Clark stood before the cameras. Her face was stone, but her eyes burned with something cold and dangerous. The Galactic Council has made a choice, she said. They have chosen to target our children. They believe this will make us weak. They believe this will make us surrender. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. They are wrong. As of this moment, All human colonies are being evacuated. All human children are being moved to secure locations. All human military forces are being mobilized. General Robert Hayes, commander of Earth's Defense Forces, began issuing orders. Every ship that could carry weapons was being converted for war. Civilian factories stopped making cars and computers and started making missiles and armor. But the most frightening change was in the people themselves. Humans had always been emotional, but now that emotion was focused like a laser beam. They were not angry. Anger was too small a word for what they felt. They were something else entirely. In research centers around Earth, scientists worked around the clock on new weapons. Dr. Benjamin Price, the head of experimental physics, had a new look in his eyes, the same look that appeared on every human face when they saw the footage. From the colony fleet. "What are you working on?" His assistant asked. "Something that will make sure this never happens again," Price replied. "Something that will teach the galaxy why humans protect their children." On the edge of human space, merchant vessels began disappearing. VRE trading posts went silent. No one claimed responsibility, but everyone knew the humans had begun their response. Elder Morton, watching from his chambers on Nexus Prime, sent urgent messages to every species he could contact. The message was always the same. They have awakened the child killer's curse. Prepare for the burning. But across the galaxy, most beings thought the old ethereal was being dramatic. Humans were soft. Humans were peaceful. How much damage could they really do? They were about to find out. 3 months after the attack on the colony fleet, strange things began happening across the galaxy. Vex trading posts that had operated for decades suddenly went silent. No distress calls, no explosions, no battles. The stations were just empty when other ships arrived to check on them. The first to disappear was Station Cathmore on the edge of human space. It was a small outpost where Vrex merchants sold weapons and ship parts to anyone with enough credits. When a Zephyrian cargo ship docked there for supplies, they found the station completely abandoned. Food was still warm in the cafeteria. Computer screens were still running, but every Vex was gone. The same thing happened at 12 other stations. Over the next few weeks, no signs of violence, no damage to the facilities. The Vex had simply vanished, leaving behind only empty corridors and the smell of fear. Admiral Susan Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, humanity's newest and most dangerous warship. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Before the attack on the colony fleet, she had been an explorer captain, mapping new star systems for peaceful colonization. Now she commanded something the galaxy had never seen before, a human war fleet built for one purpose. "Status report," she said to her bridge crew. "Rex patrol ship detected at Grid 77 Alpha. Reported Commander Paul Davis. They're running a standard trade route escort mission. How many aboard?" "Sensors show 43 Verex crew members, sir." Susan nodded. "Begin the harvest." The Retribution moved closer to the Vrex ship, but it did not attack with weapons. Instead, it used something new. A blue beam shot out from the human ship and surrounded the Vrex vessel. The alien ship's engine stopped working. Their communications went dead. Their life support systems began to fail. Inside the Verex ship, the crew panicked. They had never seen technology like this before. Their captain, a veteran warrior named Vexthra, tried to send a distress call, but nothing worked. The humans had somehow taken control of their entire ship, without firing a single shot. The blue beam pulled the Vex ship into the Retribution's cargo bay. When the bay doors closed, human soldiers in black armor boarded the alien vessel. But they did not kill the Vex crew. Instead, they did something worse. "You are going to watch something," the human commander told Vexathara. "You are going to see what your people did to our children. And then you are going to carry that memory for the rest of your life." The Vex crew was forced to sit in chairs while screens showed them footage from the colony fleet attack. They saw the children's bodies floating in space. They heard the parents screaming. They watched 8-year-old Danny Morrison drift past the camera, his small face peaceful in death. "This is what you did," the human commander said. "This is what your leaders ordered. Now you understand why we are here." After hours of forced viewing, the Vex crew was released. Their ship was repaired and they were given enough fuel to reach the nearest Vex world. But they were changed. The horror of what they had seen broke something inside them. Many of them refused to serve in the Vex military anymore. Some went insane from the guilt. This happened again and again throughout Vrex space. Human ships appeared like ghosts, captured Vrex vessels, showed the crews the footage of dead children, and then released them. It was not traditional warfare. It was something far more effective. Captain Jake Morrison commanded his own ship now, the Rebuilt Us Horizon. The name was the same, but everything else was different. This new Horizon was built for war. Its hull black as space and covered with weapons that bent the laws of physics. Jake stood in what used to be a recreation room, but now served as a command center for special operations. On the walls were pictures of all 623 children who had died in the attack. In the center was a large photo of his son, Danny, smiling and holding a toy spaceship. "Sir, we have located the Vrex colony at Helix Prime," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim. Population approximately 50,000 light defenses. Jake studied the tactical display. Helix Prime was a farming world where Vex families grew food for their military. It was not a strategic target in normal warfare, but this was not normal warfare. "Begin evacuation protocol," Jake ordered. The UES Horizon appeared in orbit around Helix Prime without warning. Vrex defense.